week's episode of 20 Minute Tims. I'm your host Jamie. I'm joined by Martin Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
Hello.
Poor Melly's got the cold, Stephen.
Yeah.
We'll have to nurse him through it. You'll just have to carry on through. You'll need to battle through, Melly.
He's a pro though. He's a pro. He's turned up and diseased us all up in this tight little studio that we're in. So
semi-pro. Listen, speaking of professionals, we've only got one question this week. I want to ask you, where are we wrong? Where were we wrong last week? Because I sat in this chair and I didn't hear much disagreement in the room about players who perhaps aren't making it at Celtic, are not going to make it at Celtic. We've had a couple of whipping boys in the podcast so far, but in the last couple of weeks, Melly, Brendan's started to play some of these fringe players and they're starting to contribute. Are they contributing enough? Who knows? But one guy that thinks he is contributing enough is David Turnbull. He scored a goal and then he put his fingers directly in his ears to suggest that he doesn't listen to 20 Minute Tims.
Yeah, and then he missed a penalty, didn't he? Yeah. Turnbull's a strange one, isn't he? He seems to pop up with goals, but it's never been quite decisive goals for Celtic. He's not got those big game goals, but he is a decent enough player. But I just felt with Ange coming in and then Hatate, Matt O'Reilly coming into the team sort of moved beyond him, and now we find him getting games again. I've never been really too for David Turnbull playing, but I've never been against him playing. I think he's just one of these players. Is he a decent guy to have around the squad? Yes. Is that a good enough reason to keep him? Probably not. You're probably aiming for better, but 2 goals in 2 games could have been free if he'd have bagged the penalty as well. And look, if he's going to be a player at Celtic, I never see him starting all the time, but if he's going to be a squad player coming in and contributing in these games, that's what he needs to do. But he needs more games like the Ross County one.
Does he have the right to stick his fingers in his ears, though, David Turnbull? Because that's a message to fans and his critics, isn't it? And I don't imagine he's got that many critics within the club. I saw Joe Hart on social media praising him after the game and all that sort of stuff. So it is a message to the fans who sort of like to have a wee go at David Turnbull. But in my opinion, it might as well be a message to the consecutive Celtic managers that don't see fit to start him every single week.
It's a y'all must have forgot gesture, isn't it? It's the official y'all must have forgot. I think the gesture itself, I think people are maybe it's a bit too sensitive about these things. It's no ideal, but I was there. He misplaced a pass right in front of us, right? We were sitting in the halfway line. He tried to pass it down the left, either Palmer or Taylor. I can't remember who it was, and it went straight to the pitch. And there were all sorts of groans and grumbles from the crowd, right? And people telling him he's pish and not good enough, right? So there's all that.
Imagine getting that at any other job you do. Just some strangers berating
Imagine
you.
we had someone in here. Imagine we had one of these people who gives us reviews and gives us YouTube comments.
They do that. That's what social media's for. They get plenty of that.
Yeah, but imagine they were sitting right here in between me and Melly, just Jekyllin or heckling is the title.
Every time I told a crap joke, boom.
So there was a bit of that for David Turnbull, and a few minutes later, he was standing right there as well. There's no way he didn't hear it. And then a few minutes later, he rattled one in the top corner and then gave it a wee bit of the fingers in the ears. And everybody's, "Oh, you're a disgrace! How dare you?" So I don't really have a problem with it. It's a little bit over the top for a guy who has just scored a goal, right? And I don't think it's probably a theme that's going to come through this episode that we're doing. Is I don't know if scoring a goal necessarily makes us unlearn everything we've ever previously thought about a certain player, especially if they've been there for years. This is David Turnbull's 4th season, I think it is. But having said that, I think he's a good player. I think David Turnbull's a very good player. He's got 5 goals already this season, which has kind of crept up on me. I was surprised by that. Could have had more, as you say, missed a penalty, but 5 goals at this stage of the season. He only got 5 in the whole of last season, so he's doing well for the limited game time he's had. And I suppose that despite the fact that consecutive managers don't necessarily play him all the time, that could be said of a number of players, including James Forrest, right? It's often said about James Forrest, well, he must bring something to the squad to have stuck around all this time, and every manager feels that he's of value to keep around. To an extent, that's kind of the same with David Turnbull, because Lennon clearly rated him because he brought him to the club. Then Ange played him a lot in his first season until he got injured and kind of ran out of steam. And now Brendan Rodgers kind of raves about him, really. He's gone out of his way to talk about David Turnbull as a very technically gifted player. He wants to keep him. There's talk of a new contract, which we'll maybe come on to in a wee second. So managers do seem to rate him, but sticking your fingers in your ears because you've scored a goal is maybe a little bit over the top. It's a wee bit over the top, but I didn't grudge him it because, again, it probably looks bad on the telly, but I was sitting in amongst it and I thought, it's a wee bit cheeky, but he's just giving a wee bit back there.
I've had my grumbles about David Turnbull, and it is kind of just his slowness, his one-footedness. Every time the ball goes to David Turnbull, he doesn't look as if he's going to make an awful lot happen unless, Melly, as you say, he pings it in himself. He's a good striker of the ball. There's no denying that.
Yeah, he's great. He can finish it well, and you've seen that with the Ross County goal. But we're looking for a bit more creativity, and it's not so much David Turnbull's the problem. It's Reo Hatate in front of him. He creates things for Celtic. He can be that sort of maverick that can create out of nothing. Turnbull can't really do that, can he? And look, he's a different player. He's maybe just not as good as Hatate, but as an understudy, is he decent enough? I think so, but what happens when it comes to a big game? Celtic will have a lot of big games, European games. They've got games coming up against Rangers in the lead up to the January break. Is David Turnbull going to be the go-to guy for Celtic in that Hatate replacement? I think he'll drop in and out. So if this is a chance for him to try and stake his claim, but he's 3-4 years into his time at Celtic, is he just all of a sudden going to be good? But at the same time, I think 24 years old, he's
I don't
not the
think he's
oldest.
a bad player. I don't think David Turnbull is a bad player, but I think a lot of it comes out of the fact that there are players that I just prefer seeing playing for Celtic, and everyone's got their own. I'm not going to berate the guy and say he's terrible. He's been here. I think he signed in 2020. Player and Young Player of the Year in one season, then under Neil Lennon, but we all know what season that was.
Yes,
the season that doesn't exist. Then consecutive managers brought in players that have sort of played ahead of him, and that's just how it's been. Nobody's seen David Turnbull as their first pick in midfield, but as you see, he's only 24. I think it's Caddyshack where the guy goes, the world needs ditch diggers too. And just because you can't be number one and you can't start, there's no denying that as a fringe player, his contribution to Celtic is net positive, and he's doing quite well. And we say this about the players that are not playing. You say, well, you get a chance, you need to take it, you need to contribute. And David Turnbull's quite right to stick his fingers in his ears and goes, well, what more do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I'm not playing, but when the manager does play, I'm scoring goals for you.
Yeah, and it's always been the way. It's always been something he's been capable of throughout his time at Celtic. He's always liable to pop up with a goal here and there. You've said it already, but he can strike a ball so well. It's obviously his main thing. It's the main thing that's made him stand out and eventually got him to Celtic in the first place. At this point, though, I think it becomes, with the chat of his new contract, and Brendan Rodgers, I think, was asked about it. It's kind of old news because he's been in the last year of his contract for quite some time now, and it's just, if he comes into the team and scores a couple of goals, he's got 2 this week, it's going to become a pressing concern for people who get to ask Brendan Rodgers questions at these press conferences. It then becomes about, right, okay, he's a good player at 24. No, I'm not disputing that, but the Celtic need him at 27. Would a better scenario not be that, and I get that this is kind of pie in the sky stuff because we've all but given up on, because all shutting Lennoxtown down, right? Because for all the good the conveyor belt is doing, but would have not been better by this point to have been replaced maybe by like an 18 or 19-year-old who's coming up behind them?
That's that question, isn't it? Like, where are these guys that we're supposed to be bringing through?
Yeah.
I've spoken before in the podcast about the struggle that Scottish clubs generally, including Celtic, have of keeping these young players, and what are you left with? Like, we're probably, I don't think it's any exaggeration to say we're looking at a situation where you probably won't ever sign another David Turnbull, you're never going to see another Callum McGregor. You're probably never going to see another James Forrest, because the promise these guys showed at that young age would have them down south and snapped up before Celtic could really even get our hands on them. Would need to be pretty sharp, pretty creative, and the player would really want to do it. But you're right in saying that. Say you're having the football manager clear out. You know, that football manager 24 is about to drop. I've not bought it in years, but I'll tell you, I am choking to get this version because of the potential clear out you can have at Celtic, and you just get to cherry pick your ideal Celtic squad. And I'm looking at it going, right, so we could maybe let him go in the summer, free up some wages. It's not an area that we really desperately need bodies in. In fact, it's the most congested area of the squad. We've got Holm in there, who I'm really enjoying watching just now. I thought his assist in the St Mirren game was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm picking and choosing my favourites. Maybe I'm being a wee bit unkind to David Turnbull, but I'm not giving David Turnbull a new contract. That being said, I probably would have tried to sell him last year and got some money in for him.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think he's decent enough. I've always said, look, he's a decent squad player to have around, but does that mean I want to dish out a new contract to him? Probably not, because if I'm looking at Reo Hatate, who plays ahead of him, Celtic, while they have a lot of midfielders, you're looking at Holm, Bernardo. Bernardo's a different player. He's not that attacking sort of midfielder. So you've got Hatate and Turnbull. I'm not quite sure where Holm fits in yet. He's looked decent in spells, but I don't think he's going to be that. Although he might be that forward-thinking, creative player. So if, for like in January, when it comes to give him a new deal or go out and sign a new midfielder in his position, I'm signing a new midfielder in his position, because we've seen last season David Turnbull is playing now because Aaron Moy's not there anymore. It's not because David Turnbull's better than Aaron Moy. It's because Moy's left and space has come up in the squad. So
are we being really cruel though? Because like, David Turnbull is a young player. So say David Turnbull was playing for talking sake, Sunderland, a club that's realistically at his level, sort of upper championship, something like that. How much would we have to pay to replace him? You know, we're sitting here and we've got the guy, and maybe we're being a wee bit dismissive. I'm just sort of talking myself out of this here, but maybe we are, because one, we've seen what the recruitment has been like so far. So we've brought it. So we're sitting here saying, sell David Turnbull and replace him with somebody else. But the fact of the matter is, we've signed Bernardo, Holm, Kwon, Ideguchi, McCarthy. None of these guys are Iwata. None of these guys are getting in ahead of David Turnbull. So
O'Reilly and Hatate cost buttons, but
I know. But if you're looking, what we've done here is we've brought in 6 players, all of whom can't get in ahead of David Turnbull. And what we're saying is, sell David Turnbull and just buy another Hatate. They're the exception to the rule. The most likely scenario here, Stephen, is we sell David Turnbull and get in another Kwon.
Well, yeah, going by
watch Kwon prove us wrong.
That'll be the next week.
Go by the numbers.
We issue a full and frank apology to Kwon after this. To me, he's a youngish player. He's not young. 24 is not a guy who you're talking about like hitting their potential or waiting for them to hit their potential. They're already pretty close to it at 24. Maybe if he played more, it might be a better idea.
Celtic player, I suppose. He's one of the younger ones in our squad, I suppose. No,
24.
Is he? Matt O'Reilly's
he's a good bit older than Matt O'Reilly. He's maybe younger than Hatate, but I'm trying not to focus on Turnbull too much, but how I think the system is kind of broken down here is that he is not young and he's not old, so he's got to that point where you're trying to make. He's right in the middle. So
we're just doing that Arsenal fan thing, aren't we?
He's 28. No, he's 29, and so he's 24. He's kind of right in the middle where I think a decision needs to be made on him, and that has coincided with his contract about to expire. And I would apply that to guys like Ralston and Welsh and others. Mikey Johnston's another one where you think, right, this has worked to an extent, but should Celtic, as a club, we've been talking about these player trading models and developing players for so long, should these guys not been should they not have something behind them by now in the 18, 19-year-old bracket? Because these guys are all on contracts, and potentially if David Turnbull gets one as well, they're all on contracts taking them up to like 28, 29 and all that. Look, where's the forward plan in here? I don't want to necessarily or unnecessarily focus too much on David Turnbull, because I think he is a good player, but we've got too many players. It's only a couple of weeks ago we were talking about how the squad's far too big. It's bloated in certain areas, and now we're talking about just keeping everything because they're quote unquote good players. So it can't really work out like that. I don't think we can just pick and choose. So we want rid of all the crap and we'll keep all the good players, despite the fact that they're maybe aging into certain brackets where they're going to want to play football a lot more than David Turnbull probably is. That's the other aspect of it. Does he even want to stay at this stage of his career? Can he better himself elsewhere? So I don't think I wouldn't be handing it a new contract to David Turnbull now.
There is a balance though, because we're going to lose potentially some other players. It's a difficult squad. It's a difficult squad to balance the Celtic squad, and there needs to be some proper recruitment done, and we need to look at the squad as a whole. I think that the scattergun approach that we've spoken about a million times isn't going to work, and I think with David Turnbull in particular, you're right. Are we just keeping him when he's going to rise to the top because we've sold everyone else around him? All the other qualities went out, and then David Turnbull ends up playing. I suppose the mark of it's going to be, does Brendan trust him to start against Madrid? Yeah,
that'll be it, wasn't it? That's the sort of acid test for him. He's scored in the last 2 games, the Ross County game, probably his best performance in a long, long time for Celtic. Is it going to be enough for these games? Probably not still. To be honest, I'd play Bernardo ahead of him, but looking forward as well, I think this Celtic team lacks a bit of creativity, a wee bit of flair. And while we want, bring in a winger to do that, I still want somebody in that central midfield area out with Rio Hatate that's going to be able to do that. Turnbull's there right now and he's not doing it. He can score the odd goal, gets the odd assist, but he's not that creative player we need. And moving forward, is he just being stuck around because he's a Scottish player and we need these for the Champions League? I know you hate it, Stephen, and it's a crap rule. End of the day, we need these players. We need these players to be able to register them. So is he an option that way? Is that enough?
But again, that's not enough for David. I don't imagine for a minute that's enough for David Turnbull. At 24, he's a talented footballer. Hey, David, going to stick around because you fulfil a quota. That's a Celtic problem. That David Turnbull would be well within his rights to say. There is a question of style though, isn't there? Because again, it comes to the sort of holistic view of the squad and the way Brendan Rodgers wants to play, and that lack of creativity and the trouble we're sort of finding, the change of style we've seen, maybe the trouble we're finding Kyogo's runs, which has been brought up in the last couple of games. Are you keeping them because he's a good player and you're frightened you're not going to get any better? Or are you keeping David Turnbull? Well, this goes for any player, but not specifically David Turnbull. Are you keeping him because he fits into Brendan Rodgers' vision for Celtic? And part of me is just worried that Brendan's doing that thing where he goes, I want to keep David Turnbull because he's kind of maybe not got that much faith that we'll be able to replace David Turnbull. 5 goals already. He's coming in, he's contributing. Brendan's like, it's a risky bit of business getting rid of a guy like this.
Yeah, and that's why I'm keen for this not to appear like a hatchet job on David Turnbull. I think we all broadly agree he's a very good player and a useful player to have in scoring goals. Even when he starts and even off the bench, he scored that hilarious goal against Rangers last season. Remember the was it John McLaughlin passed it straight to him? So he has had his uses and he's turned up when it's mattered for Celtic. Again, it just the circumstances are just sort of coming to a bit of a crossroads for David Turnbull and for Celtic as to what you do next. Another element of, to address what you were talking about there, Brendan Rodgers, he certainly seems to think so. Brendan Rodgers certainly seems to think he's worth having around because it's David Turnbull and Malky Mackay. He can't stop praising.
Doesn't he love
Absolutely
Malky
loves Malky Mackay.
We get it. Malky Mackay's your friend.
I've never seen. He's doing that weird thing where Pep Guardiola just weirdly focuses in on people that are kind of below him, and he just talks about them far too much. I've never seen Brendan Rodgers kind of doing that with Malky Mackay. I've never seen him so avuncular about any other rival manager, and they're all hugging. Even when the game's going on, the camera was cutting to them, and they're all yucking it up on the sideline. Like,
relax, Brendan.
You're at your work, lads.
The guy's got a reputation.
Keep your distance.
Don't show me that group chat.
But another element of it is that we talk about replacing them, right? And I've said that ideally I would like these players to get to like 24, 25. You make a decision. Are they going to get better? If the answer is yes, give them a new contract by all means. If the answer is no, they've kind of hit their ceiling and they're always going to be a sort of fringe player. David Turnbull's maybe more than there are tiers to being a fringe player. There are guys that barely play at all, and David Turnbull is one of the 13 or 14 players who do play quite often. So he is useful there, but I would prefer for Celtic to be planning for the future, and it doesn't matter if it's youth development or bringing in signings, because they're doing that anyway. They're bringing in Holm, who's significantly younger than David Turnbull. You would like to think, well, he will eventually replace him. It remains to be seen. But we've also got the other, I jokingly referred to earlier, the Lennoxtown thing. Are guys like Ben Summers, would we as well just letting him go the now then? If David Turnbull gets another contract, is he completely useless? And he's just a name. I don't mean to focus on it. I've only seen a little bits and pieces of him. He looks like a decent player. But if our Ben Summers and Rocco Vata, are they never going to be as good as David Turnbull and James Forrest currently are? If the answer is no, then I'm fine with that. But where there seems to be just a bit of a disconnect here in the use of the squad.
And that's what I was sort of getting at, Melly, when I'm talking about the holistic, you're looking at across the whole squad. Because last week I'd sort of said, I can't remember the names now, but the scattergun was out because I was getting a wee bit frustrated with some of these guys that just don't look as if they're going to contribute. I spoke about I spoke about Yang, and I wasn't just commenting off the top of my head. This is something that Brendan Rodgers has said himself. He says, look, you can call yourself a Celtic player, you turn up, you train, you get the tracksuit, you smell, I think he even said they smell nice. They've got they've got Louis Vuitton bags. I'm sure he said that.
Versace blue jeans everywhere.
But until you're playing, until you're contributing to the Celtic first team, you can't call yourself a Celtic player. And it's a bit late in the day, or it was looking late in the day when I recorded the podcast only last week, that some of these guys don't look as if they are going to contribute. So players like and Yang, are they in the same boat?
I think Yang's a bit different. He's just in the door, but I still it's a Mirren game. He came on, he injected something that Celtic were really lacking. He looked good, and then at the weekend he got the start. But again, he's a weird one because comes on against St Mirren, looks good, tries to make things happen, but ultimately didn't make anything happen. Started at the weekend, tried to do his stuff, but ultimately again looks good in flashes, but I can't really remember him creating too much. And then Lewis Palmer comes on and gets a goal and an assist in a 20-minute cameo. That's the difference. Yang looks good, Palmer does good. And with Yang, it might come, he is still young. With I think he's going to be a decent player. I think he's never going to be that guy that starts. He needs a run of games to see what he can do. He's never going to get that. So when he does start in games like this, he has to take his chances. And the one during the week, brilliant finish for a guy that hasn't been playing much. Could have been easy for him to take a poor touch and then just lash at that, but he takes a brilliant touch and he puts it away. And hopefully that's the relief for him. And then at the weekend he gets a goal that is disallowed by offside. Or gets into positions where he looks like he's going to score. It's just not been falling for him recently. He is a guy that's always in and around the 6-yard box, so I think he will be fine. Is he as good as Giakoumakis? Don't think so. Could he be? Possibly. But again, Hugo's ahead of him. He's going to play. What I kind of did like was the fact that he is an option now, whereas last week or a couple of weeks ago we were bemoaning the fact that we've got about 11 players here, maybe 12. Starting to see a couple of them come into it now. But when Kyogo went in the number 10 and O went up front, some of that looked good. So for games against Ross County, maybe St Mirren, sort of the lower half teams, that might be an option going forward.
There is a question of styles here, isn't there, about where does O fit in? Because I want O and Yang to do quite well, but I can't really disagree with much of what Melly said about both the players. I think when we got Giakoumakis, he was a much more established striker than O was.
Oh, yeah.
So you're no really comparing like for like. Yeah. It's a bit of an unfair comparison, actually. In fact, Giakoumakis went and won some award over Lionel Messi over in the MLS.
He's 29 as well, isn't he?
So the problem with Giakoumakis was maybe he was too good to play second fiddle. That's why the guy wanted to go. He wanted to go and be first fiddle somewhere. So he wanted to be primary fiddle, and he's went over to America and he's doing that. O has to take these chances when he drops in. So I suppose I started the podcast saying, were we wrong about David Turnbull? And we kind of didn't reach any conclusion about that. But
doubled in, whatever you do.
Yeah, that's the podcaster's way, isn't it? You say something, you get hassle for it, and you have to double down to get hassle for it.
Even if we kind of lull people into a false sense of security by saying, oh, they might be about to admit they're wrong, forget it. Forget it. Never, ever.
Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think because it's collective responsibility here, it's like the cabinet, do you think we are wrong about to say that he's maybe struggling, he's maybe not going to be a sale player? Yang, have you seen anything last week or so?
It depends what we've said about O. I think largely, with O, we've just thought that he's been very unlucky recently. I think he's been getting in, as Melly says, he's been getting in the right positions and things just aren't going over the line for him. What I called for, I think a couple of weeks ago or the week before, I can't remember, where I said that the problem with the squad is that I can't see anyone coming in. We've got a very big and messy squad. And the squad, to an extent, even watching the last two games, it's still very difficult to get a handle on because it's quite transient. Players just come and go. Mikey Johnson comes off the bench and then is nowhere to be seen again. So it's all quite strange. But what I called for a couple of weeks ago was for some of these guys to just not only be efficient in their support, their backup for the first 11, as it were, because that is kind of emerging as a first 11, as you know. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, where a first 11 kind of has emerged recently, be a support to that. But not only that, can you start the odd game and not look completely out of place? And that's what O's done in the last couple of weeks. He came off the bench and scored against St Mirren, and then he started and was very unlucky not to come away with at least a couple of goals in that game. So I think he has answered that question I asked of him. Whether we are wrong about him, I don't think so. What I just said was that this is what I want to see. Kyogo can't start every single game, especially in the build-up to massive Champions League games and all that. It's not a healthy position for any squad to be in where you can't rely on anyone off the bench or anyone to... It's changed days. It's no longer the 90s where you just pick 11 players and just stick with it all season. We have to have a right back such as Ralston who come in and started the game. We should have a left back. We don't, right? That's a complete write off. Bernabeu's nowhere to be seen. But we need a striker who can play every 6th or 7th game to take the pressure off the main guy. And that's what he did. That's what he did to a pretty decent degree. I don't know if he's ever going to be... Let's say, for example, Kyogo's kind of aging out of that big move thing, and I'm kind of glad of that, to be honest. We've got him tied down for a wee while. But say, for example, a Bundesliga or Italian team comes in for Kyogo in a season or two's time. Is O going to be the main guy going forward? That remains to be seen. We might never see. I was going to say we will see. We might not find that out. But I'm more confident in him in the last few games than I have been previously, because there have been spells this season where he just looked as if he was never going to score. We're
learning all the time. We're learning every time we see these guys. It gives us an opportunity and it gives us a chance to decide whether we're wrong, and we've just decided that probably mostly not. Mostly not.
It's not just that. It's the I don't know if Brendan Rodgers knows yet either, does he? Because he brought on Mikey Johnson and James Forrest against Hibs, and Yang was left on the bench, and then Mikey Johnson's not seen. He brought on James Forrest ahead of against Atletico Madrid and played James Forrest up front. So he's still all over the place with his selections as well. Lagerbielke nowhere to be seen. Phillips comes in and out. So the squad is all over the place.
I think there is a bit of lack of consistency. I think Brendan Rodgers is still trying to. I feel like Brendan Rodgers has a lot of control over these games, but we're not entirely convincing. We're not hugely convincing in these games. We're winning, we're drawing, we're ticking the fixtures by, and it all looks very controlled. And to me, what I'm getting from Celtic just now is part of the way there. We're part of the way there, and he probably wants one or two windows to do some adjustment to the squad and get some players in so he can reach peak Celtic, and that's fine. I think we can all agree the transfer window's an absolute write-off, and you're chopping and changing the squad. As you've said, these players are coming in to contributing to various degrees of success.
Yeah, and it has been put to us. I can only really go on what people communicate to us during the week. They send us comments on YouTube and send us in emails about, is Brendan Rodgers picking these teams? Is he putting out these?
Oh, I thought you were going to reference that email the guy sent us asking us to resolve the Israel-Palestine.
Oh, yeah, we're on it. We're on it. Don't worry about that. Yeah,
thanks, mate.
Yeah, best minds are on it. But we've got our hands full with this podcast at the moment. What was it? Oh, yeah. So people come to us and say things like, do you think Brendan Rodgers might be sending a message? See, with these slightly underwhelming starting lineups, do you think he's sending a message to the board? I'm like, well, I can't really refute that because I don't know, but I would find it difficult to believe that, because what we need to remember as fans, we only see what goes on the pitch and we get the odd snippet of news, headlines and all that. But these people work together. Brendan Rodgers is liaising with the board on an absolutely daily basis. There's no need for him to be throwing out weird lineups just to say, hey,
he's also not afraid to just come out and say it. He
said
a couple of weeks ago, the squad's massive, it's too big.
Yeah.
He said it, and I think part of the problem and part of the reason we're seeing like Mikey Johnson drop in, then you don't see him again, then Lagerbielke, I think that's just an effort to keep the players happy. I think that's just an effort to get minutes into guys that look as if they can, all right, he can probably contribute a bit. There are a few mysteries, and I think there's a few Lagerbielke to me is a bit of a mystery, right?
Yeah.
Bernabei's not a mystery.
No,
we don't know exactly what happened, but we know the guy's he's nowhere to be seen, and he'll probably end up leaving the club. Were we wrong about referees and VAR? That's another topic I want to ask if we were wrong about. Look, some absolutely mystifying decisions for me, and particularly in the Ross County game.
Oh, that first half was absolutely abysmal. Started off with the disallowed goal, the Liam Scales one. So, adjudged to have fouled. 2 other teams get that given against them. I'm just going to say no. I'm going to say no.
Who do you mean, Melly?
I just feel we're refereed differently. I don't see how that's a foul, and it's made very pernickety, that one. The shirt pulls at the corners, that probably not a penalty, but again, we seen last week another team gets that. So I'm just looking at it, and the refereeing performance was all over the place. The VAR, where they changed the yellow card to the red card, when the referee goes over and watches that, he watches himself watching it and then decides to change it. So he's seen it first time, he goes over, the best angle for him is the one that he looks past himself to see it.
Like
and then he changes it. See if that guy in the yellow top would just move out the way, I'd have a belter of a view of this. So changing that one, look, the right decision was made, but it was just all over the place. I felt the referee didn't really have a clue what was going on. I'm like, why is this happening again? And then just to add it all into the mix, the offside, the camera angle they had on that was absolutely delightful. If you're going to disallow goals from that sort of angle, it's not conclusive enough for me.
Because the whole deal with offside is, it's funny you mentioned the camera angle versus what the officials see. So if you're going to deal with offside, before what we had was a linesman who in theory was looking straight down the line and he could call it. Now what we've got is a linesman looking straight down the line and a camera angle for way over here where you can't really get any sort of conclusive view on what's going on. Look, we are refereed differently. I'm absolutely convinced. Call me what you like in the comments. I'm sure the Rangers fans will get a hold of this. I'm absolutely convinced that whether it's sympathy refereeing or referees think we're just going to win games anyway so they can referee us to the letter of the law, that's absolutely, that's one theory you can go with. But there is that goal that Liam Scales. There's no way Rangers are getting that goal chalked off. Not a chance.
No, you'd made mentioned an interesting phrase there, sympathy refereeing. That's a thing that shouldn't exist in the day of VAR. After the advent of VAR, sympathy refereeing shouldn't exist, because when VAR comes into play, there's a question that maybe people don't ask themselves. It's like, why didn't I give that? So why didn't I make that decision? Previously, you could have just said, "Oh, I didn't see that. It looked as if someone was fouled." You would never be pulled up for it because of VAR anyway. But the referee and the VAR gets a chance to look at it again. So the explanation would tend to be, why am I not going to give that, or why have I given that? It's never really fully explained. So if there is, for example, a shirt pull in another game, and we've all seen it recently, the good thing about Twitter, or X, it's so shite. So the good thing about that is that people come up with examples that I've long forgotten, and they're immediately on there with, this happened in a game 3 weeks ago. So again, right, if that's going to be applied, why have you not given that? Given that you've got all the information is there, you didn't miss it, you've been given the chance to watch it again and again and again. Take 5 minutes to work out this. Why have you not given that, is the question that I would ask. And it can't be that it's sympathy refereeing, because that shouldn't be applied at all.
Was O's foul for Scales' goal VAR'd off, or was that blown at the time?
VAR'd off.
So it was VAR'd off,
yeah.
right? So you see that all the time in games.
Yeah.
And so every single goal gets VAR'd, every goal gets reviewed, and they're no given these things. Honestly, it doesn't really help their case when you've got David Dickinson in the Rangers game getting at that. Oh, you're doing some job, big man. No, look.
A man of substance. He was seen to mouth from the end of the pitch.
Look, all the conspiracy theories you want, okay? Right? David Dickinson, I'm convinced, is a Rangers fan. I am absolutely convinced of it, right? There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. There's people in Glasgow that are Rangers fans, and some of them end up as referees. But he should have net zero emotion about Rangers scoring a goal.
Yeah.
There should be net zero emotion about that, because he's there to do something. He's there to make sure nobody runs on the pitch. He's not there to wistfully catch the eye of the new Rangers manager and give him a good job, mate smile. And I would be, and Stephen, you're trying to come in, and I would be less convinced of this had it not been David Dickinson who gave Rangers the dodgy penalty against Morton to ensure that they progressed in the competition earlier on. It was for that dodgy shirt pull that Michael Beale called harsh.
Yes.
Kirk Broadfoot came out and said nobody knew why he gave it. We knew he'd end up giving them a penalty to even it up. Nobody could understand this penalty that Morton got. And then fast forward, you see him smiling on the touchline when Rangers score. I mean, it's up to him at this point to prove he didn't enjoy that goal, because it's Chekhov's gun, or whatever it's called. What's that? Yeah. Is that what it's called?
Chekhov's gun is the device in fiction where if you show a gun in the first act, it has to be fired in the third act.
Well, that is actually what it meant, but I mean something else. What I mean is, for me,
use boxing.
No, I can't possibly do the boxing. What I mean is, if somebody's on the sidelines going, if somebody scores, it's very difficult for them to turn around and say, I was doing something else. No.
And he's the fourth official. He's standing between the dugouts. That's where the camera's pointed. That's where all the subs are made. That's where the managers are. It's not like... Do you remember that Scotland game recently where someone was caught on camera getting a little bit handsy with the girl he had his arm round?
Yeah.
So he must have come away from that thinking, what are the chances? I'm in the crowd. There's 50,000 people here and I'm the one on camera. David Dickinson's standing between the managers. He must... How can you not know there's a camera on you?
It was so needy and weird. You're there to do your job. You should have no net zero emotion about it. When VAR was brought in, right, it was brought in presumably to make the game better, to make the game of football better. Else, why would they bring it in? It was brought in merely to get more decisions correct. But we're honestly verging to the point with VAR now where all it's doing is highlighting the incompetence of the referees. And you don't want to be the first country to bin it, but that first point, it was brought in to make the game better. Maybe there's other leagues doing it better. Maybe they're doing it better in England. It certainly doesn't seem like anyone's enjoying VAR, but I don't think for me that there's any doubt now that VAR in Scotland has completely failed when it comes to that first bit, making the game better. It's sometimes the decisions are a mystery. The arbitrary nature of when and how it's applied is completely bizarre to me. And then third and finally, and probably most importantly, see when you're in the stand sometime and they don't tell you what it's for and they don't show you the graphic, you're the people in the stadium, you're subject to this as well, and you're not getting things put on the screen that you should be seeing. You've got no idea. It's just not working.
I'm not sure, mate. I think if we look at the past 2 games for Celtic, Celtic got a penalty that they wouldn't have got. John Beaton didn't give it against St Mirren. He completely missed the fact that Gogic blocked the ball with his hand, and the referee, whilst looking at a guy nearly break somebody's leg, didn't give it either. So those Celtic reached the right decisions for them. So I think it should be more often than not it'll get the right decisions. It's no highlighting that it's no making football worse. It's highlighting how bad the referees are in this country time and time again. They are so bad. They're getting so much wrong.
They're still giving stuff like Burnaby's handball.
Yeah,
earlier on the season, David Dickinson.
That was was that him?
He also missed that chest high tackle on Yakimakis in the same game.
He's got a good rap sheet, hasn't he?
I know.
So I think with VAR, it is brought in to try and get to the right decision, but the wrong decision is made on the pitch so many times that it's the referees that are getting shown up. I think they're very, very poor. They are lenient. Even the VAR one, like if you're going to referee to the absolute letter of the law, like disallowing the Liam Scales one, there should have been about 3 or 4 penalties then. If you're going by, if that's what the measuring stick is, if that's a foul, there's 2 shot pulls on Celtic players, there's all sorts going on, so there'll be penalties dished out all over the place, but they're only dished out in one end of Glasgow.
Well, that's exactly what I was getting at a minute ago. Maybe didn't explain it very well. That's kind of what I'm like. But it was like, see, if the letter of the law, why are you not applying the letter of the law? Why have you seen something that should be applied to the letter of the law and thought, nah, I'll pull back from a little bit from the letter of the law because of these set of circumstances? It's absolutely no good enough. And at that game, look, it's 2 good wins this week, 2 good wins that Celtic have got. We're doing our job just about here. We're getting the results ticking along here.
That's why we're moaning about it now.
Yeah, that's it. Again, you get the usual. Oh, you won 3-0 and still moaning about refs. Yes, that's the time to moan about the refs. Yes, we've been over this. But there's when someone is sent off against Celtic or one of the better teams, people love that narrative that it ruins the game, right? Oh, you've sent somebody off. It's dead as a contest. Yeah, but that's kind of what it's for, isn't it? That not ruining the contest and not ruining your chances of winning the game is kind of part of the deterrent against doing stuff like that, against trying to break someone's ankle. Well, he didn't try to break someone's ankle, but he very nearly did. So the right decision was... yeah. Having watched the replay back, and the referee did as well, I see that the guy was looking at the ball. He does think he has a reasonable chance at getting to the ball, but he just doesn't. It just doesn't. It just plants one straight on Yang's ankle, and that's exactly it. But that's
ankle. Yeah,
and it's part of the deterrent against getting sent off is not ruining your team's chances of. So the game itself became. It was inevitable that Celtic were going to win it because it kind of felt like that straight away. But once they went down to 10 men, but it was very obvious what kind of game it was going to descend into after that. And yeah, Celtic maybe made a meal of breaking a team like that down. But Brendan Rodgers after the game was talking about how difficult it can be to play against a team of 10 men because that's his thing, and that he knows fine well about what he changes. He changes things up for the positive.
Malky Mackay probably told him how to do it.
Exactly.
Send him a text and touch. Here, try this.
Brendan Rodgers is just still there going, clever girl. Change the tactics. Another Jurassic Park one. But he changed up the tactics to make it difficult for Celtic. But the refereeing was deplorable, absolutely dismal. Again, it's so amateurish feeling. Just so in the. Has VAR made football better in this country? I don't know. I don't. The thing is, it's supposed to have removed controversy, isn't it? But it evidently hasn't done that because here we are talking about all the contentious decisions. So it hasn't done that. But what I would say is that Scotland have and always were lined up to have an absolutely half-arsed version of it, and we saw that with the ridiculous camera angle we got on that offside. I'll never know if that was offside or not because it was completely inconclusive. Whether the VAR has access to a different angle than I saw.
Shows it then?
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea. But that was completely inconclusive. They just drew some dotted lines that were on a blurry image from a sort of 45-degree angle to the line.
It's supposed to work.
No, is that an economical factor? Can Scottish teams not afford full fat VAR in this country? Maybe, but the problem is that in trying to implement something like that to improve the game, we haven't been able to afford to implement the best version of it. So therefore, you're going to get a shitty end of the bargain when it comes to trying to make this work. And it hasn't improved the game up here at all. And it hasn't even really removed the element of controversy it gets in these decisions.
And it's not improved the game. obviously there's a lot of controversy about the Green Brigade not being invited to games, and as usual with these sorts of things, everyone immediately must race to their posts and take up two very staunch, well, not staunch, maybe that's not the word you want to use, but very hard angles on it. And I'll be honest, I'm really struggling with this a wee bit. There's so much of this I don't understand. So Celtic, in a rare thing, because the problem with Celtic is their communication's always honking, they issued a rap sheet of things that the Green Brigade did wrong, and off the back of that, cancelled a lot of people's season tickets. Practically the whole Green Brigade section have had their season tickets paused. First of all, they weren't allowed to away games, then they had their home season tickets paused, so that's missing that bit. The timing of that was odd. Celtic said it was nothing to do with the Palestine demonstration, and I would like to think it wasn't. The timing was odd, and the way that it sort of ramped up really quickly. First it was the away tickets, and then it was almost no tickets. Like, you're not allowed your tickets in at all. And there's rumours for people well better connected than us that say this is the end of the Green Brigade. For me, I don't understand why. The Green Brigade perspective is, well, it's difficult to say what the Green Brigade perspective is, because they did say that they would communicate through their official channels. They put out a statement more or less denying it. They went on another Celtic podcast and they spoke a bit about it, but they didn't go into too much detail about it. But fair play to the guy for the Green Brigade. He was willing to go into the rap sheet. My personal position is, I don't know how individual things happen at football games. You gather up a whole bunch of season tickets and say you're all to blame for what is maybe numerous, but individuals at a game. I don't know how you do that. You just gather up all these people and ban them. The Green Brigade say Celtic have banned them because of the Palestine display. That's a heavy charge, and I think you need to prove that. But at the same time, the timing makes it quite difficult to disagree with.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they can't sort it out, though. I don't understand what is so wrong with... Because we all like the Green Brigade. We like the fan culture of it. We like the banners. We like the displays. We like the pyro. We like what they bring to the game. We like the atmosphere. We like all that stuff the Green Brigade does. Nobody's a saint at the football. We're all sitting here. We've done things we shouldn't do at the football, i.e. sneaking in, drinking, all that.
That's it.
Sneaking in, drinking, all that sort of stuff. Stephen smoking in the smoking in the toilets, right? So we're not sitting here like pious. We know we've been going to the football for a long time, and we know what happens at the football and all that sort of stuff.
Doodling on the walls, that kind of stuff.
And everybody misbehaves at the football from time to time. So we know what that's like. I'm just of the position, personally, now we don't speak for anybody else in this podcast, I don't understand why it's got to this point. It seems like there's a big part of the story for me missing, either for Celtic side or the other side, and they need to get together and they need to try and sort it out, because I think most of the Celtic fans enjoy what the Green Brigade do in the stadium and all that. This rap sheet, if it's true, if it's not true, and I'm only going on what I heard on this other podcast, the guy for the Green Brigade said he never denied all of it. He said he would be happy to talk about it. So there's obviously elements of that which may or may not be true. The Hibernian thing was a mystery to me why that was included. Green Brigade weren't at Hibs, and Melly, you were at Hibs, and it's a disaster every time. Everyone goes to Easter Road, so to try and pin that one on the Green Brigade kind of doesn't make any sense to me. But why they can't get the two sides together and get it sorted out and say, does the good have to come with the bad? Can't we have this and not that? And if it's for the Palestine thing, and there's people at Celtic who, and this is my own feelings, no speaking for anyone else, but if you're a director at Celtic, or you're on the board, or you're high up at Celtic, and you have an issue with the Celtic fans supporting the Palestinian cause at Celtic Park, then you need to resign, because that's what Celtic Park's for. That's where Celtic Park fans come from. That's what we believe in. And there's a support there that's never going to go away. So if you don't like seeing that at Celtic Park, you maybe need to resign your position as a board member, because you don't really get, as a board member at Celtic, to dictate to the fans what they do and don't do as far as support for Palestine goes. That's just a moral position that you have to take. So I would hate to think, and everybody knows Celtic phoned up Fan Media and says this is what's going to happen. Everybody probably got the phone call, and we put out tweets. And in that phone call, Celtic said this is categorically nothing to do with Palestine. But at the same time, Stephen, the timing kind of makes you really, really question that. And you don't want to come on and call him a liar. I'm not calling the Green Brigade a liar. I'm not calling Celtic a liar, but just, it's not making sense. Things are not matching up for me a wee bit.
No, well, and the trouble is we're only really getting statements from each side. There's no communication between the two that we are being made aware of. And all that's happening, really, just boiling it down to its base elements here, is Celtic are saying it's for this. The Green Brigade are saying no, it isn't. It's for this. Yes. Celtic are saying no, it is actually for this thing. And they're saying no, forget about all that. It's for this one thing. It's a Palestine thing. So I don't know where to find the true story in amongst all that, because I kind of feel like both sides are somewhat sugarcoating their own part in
They
it.
are,
Right. Again,
aye.
I'm only going by what I can. I've got no insight into this other than just reading statements from each side, and I'm just like, well, is this true? Or are you completely disagreeing on what this is even about? So even what the crux of the issue is,
because I'll hear people in the comments saying, "I were you saying this to Celtic on the phone?" Yes,
Yeah,
categorically, 100%. When someone from the Celtic press office phoned around newspapers and phoned around fan media, I said to the person on the phone, I says, "Look, I'm finding this difficult to believe." And I categorically can say that.
And on that slightly misunderstood element of things, like we don't have a relationship with Celtic that goes beyond them sending us press releases. No. They invite us to the odd press thing, and if they've got something to promote, that's when they'll get in touch with us. We don't have a dialogue.
We're on the same boat.
Yeah,
everybody does a Celtic podcast.
We don't have a dialogue.
Boat, really.
We don't have any ins to the Celtic boardroom. So I just want to clear that kind of thing up because
not important enough.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, anything we've even asked for in the past about how, right, can you send us better audio through from this press conference because we can't use that blanked, right? Yeah. So that's the kind of the nature of the relationship there. But the thing is, if it really is just about individual fans being banned for perceived bad behaviour by the club, right, I kind of need to take them on face value. That it's not really any of my business. I don't. It's often levelled at both the Green Brigade and fan media that you don't speak for this. You don't have to. We don't, stick to the football, all that sort of stuff. So I don't know why MD would care about my opinion on the matters such as these either. I just prefer to see some sort of resolution one way or the other, and for more information. Well, for some proper information to come out about it that isn't just it's about Palestine, not isn't it? It's definitely about Palestine. No, we'll forget it then, because if the two sides can't even agree upon what the offence is, then that's a major problem, and fans that are casual observers to this are left completely in the dark and completely in limbo about. They say it's about one thing, and the club say it's about something completely different.
Really hard to trust 100% what is coming out of the club.
I
find it really, really difficult to just take all that on face value, Mel, and go, they're absolutely correct, because there's just so much sort of. You always get the feeling there's like an ulterior thing at play, and the times of this kind of didn't really add up, and you get the feeling that, okay, they're saying this front and foremost, but actually what they're doing is they're working towards another plan. But it always comes back to me, why would they want rid of the Green Brigade? Why would they work towards that? I kind of don't get it. So I think maybe if there are issues with behaviour within the Green Brigade section, the Green Brigade need to take that on board themselves and do a bit better self-policing. I think there needs to be that. I still don't get this sort of, I don't know what else to call it, but it is a pretty loaded phrase at the moment, and I don't want to draw parallels between the Green Brigade and the board and something else, the greater conflicts that are happening in the world. I don't want to do that, but I don't know what else to call it, but this collective punishment. Hey, this wee guy did something at Fir Park, you're all banned. That kind of doesn't sit right, because I don't think it would happen in any other section. If we were sitting down and all of us three, or you two sit together at Celtic, if yous went, I don't know, you turned up to a game pissed, wrecked, Steward throw you out, Stephen got his usual mouthy self and said, I'll stick you in a headlock, mate, right? Or whatever Stephen says to people when he's about to battle them. I don't see the whole of 105.6 or wherever you guys sit, I don't see them going, right, you're all cancelled. So it's that bit that kind of doesn't stack up to me.
But listen, if I'm going to get you in a headlock, I'm not going to warn you about it in advance. You believe you,
that's
me.
That's a rookie error.
It's for me, it's all the timing's been horrible with this. Even the Celtic statement after the banner and the Kilmarnock game, just don't say anything. You don't need to say it. And Celtic's timing here has been terrible. It looks like it's in the lead up to Palestine and supporting that, but as well, you can't just jump to Celtic bad, Green Brigade good, and just take it from there. Where I maybe have a wee bit of sympathy with the club for is the fact that, right, there may be this rap sheet building up of the Green Brigade, and then Celtic decide to act on it. Terrible timing. But are they meant to come out every week and go, right, the Green Brigade done this game, then the next week go, the Green Brigade done this, and then this? That's not really how it works, is it? There'll be talks going on in the background, like, guys, you can't do this, or this is happening again. But there doesn't seem to be, there's a lot of communication, not the proper communication going on, and we're all left here wondering, right, who is right, who is wrong, who's done what, and it's just a mess all over. I don't think either of them are coming out looking good in this at all. I think it's been really poor, really badly handled, and it's a bit, like, there's things going on that are bigger than that, but Celtic aren't playing brilliant just now. They're not struggling, but bringing in Brendan Rodgers was a wee bit controversial, and you thought everybody would try to be coming together, becoming a collective. Went the complete opposite way, and I'm not saying it's having a bad effect on the team, but it's having a bad effect on the fans. And the fans are the ones that go to the football. It's their release. It's the thing they look forward to going to see. It's having a negative effect on that. So it has to be sorted one way or the other. And it has to be sorted where it can't just be one party is happy with it and the other is completely unhappy with it. There has to be a middle ground somewhere.
What I would also say is, and maybe this is coming a bit sort of too obsequious, but even if everything on that charge sheet that Celtic put out is correct, I still don't think if that's 100% correct, right, and they're bang to rights for all the stuff they did on that charge sheet, right, I just don't think that's enough to remove what is such a large part of the Celtic fandom now. Well, although I will say at the same time, as long as there was a promise that going on forward that those sorts of things didn't occur, if that's what's happening, if this is your charge sheet and for this reason we're disbanding the Green Brigade, I don't necessarily believe and buy into that either. I don't think that is
pretty bad, but
that is the right form of punishment. Well, but do you think it's bad enough to completely disband 320 people's season tickets and don't let them? You know, how do you?
Maybe not. But at the same time, it's not a one-off, is it? This isn't just. It's always been brilliant. Apart from this season, this is happening. So it's been building up over a long time that the club and the Green Brigade are going at loggerheads. There's got to be better ways to go about it than the two of them sort of airing their dirty laundry in public. It's embarrassing for both parties.
And the last word on it before we get to the Atletico game, because we want to talk about ATLETICO.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's difficult. The thing that the North Cup put out today about the direct debit still being taken for these people.
It's poor, isn't it?
That's poor. It's just basic admin.
Is that right? I missed that.
They put out a tweet earlier on saying Celtic are still taking direct debit, still taking money for away games that people are not allowed to go to. If that's true, that's basic admin.
Champions League games as well will be coming out as well. Probably.
You need to sort that. You can't be taking people's money after them.
I didn't realise that. That's news to me. But that's a very strange thing to do, because you think the most effective thing they could possibly do would be to cancel the direct debits of those, because that's a big statement. It would be a big statement to those who they feel have wronged or offended in some way if they cancelled their direct debits, because they would actually take notice of that and think, well, club are actually serious about this now. I final thing probably from me on it is that I do get that the Green Brigade bring an awful lot to the match going experience, but that
saves me having to sing.
Yeah, it does. It saves a lot of people having to sing.
I think it saves the people from around me hearing me sing. To be really honest.
But that also doesn't give you the impunity to behave how you want at away grounds. No. And I'm going to stress this, right? I use the word strongly, allegedly, right? Yeah. Because that's all I can go on.
It doesn't matter what you say in a podcast, people take it the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. So I completely ignore that's word I use strongly there. But allegedly, there has been some talk of bad behaviour at away grounds. I would prefer for that not to happen. I'm quite a passionate believer in don't behave like a dick in public, right?
Regardless of, get on board with that.
Regardless of what it is, whether it's gigs or nightclubs or restaurants, or imagine that, restaurants, but whatever you go to, play by the same rules as
podcast live shows.
Yeah, definitely that. But we all kind of need to broadly agree to behave by the rules that we've all signed up to, the social contract. So don't behave like dicks. But again, I stress that these are only allegations, because all I can go on is what Celtic have said, and all I can go on is Green Brigade having sort of denied that, but they did say that they have displayed boisterous behaviour and they'll quite happily bypass security protocols at stadiums because they don't want to see football sanitised and all that. So it depends what that means. And I'm reading between the lines what exactly that means. I can't speak for it because I wasn't there. I can only go on what has been alleged. And again, I stress that word. So I would prefer not to see that. And I don't think that being a colourful part of the matchday experience excuses that. I don't think that is. Whether I agree with it being just a blanket ban on anyone associated with it, regardless of it, no, I don't think so. But I suppose that Celtic collecting those names and lumping them all together might be the only way of having any sort of control or influence over it. Is that in a much smaller scale, is that what happens if someone misbehaves at the football and you get stand closure and stuff like that? Is it the only way to just basically just bring the hammer down in a excessive way is to deliver the message? I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know.
it's ongoing.
It's messy. It's a messy subject as well, because we get messages for people. We don't really operate too much in what, outside influences, and we sort of draw our own conclusions about things. But as soon as you even broach the subject of the Green Brigade, we will 100% get it off the back of this podcast. As soon as you even come close to that subject about the Green Brigade, even if you mention them, you will have people going, genuinely, you'll have people going, can't believe you 100% support the Green Brigade and everything they do. They shouldn't be near our club. And you will also get people going, can't believe you support the board and don't want the Green Brigade court games. No matter what opinion you give, you get that. We get messages before we even spoke about this. Your unwavering support for the Green Brigade is a disgrace and all that sort of stuff. It's such a thorny subject, and you do take a risk talking about it in podcasts, because we've spoken about this before and it's become a bit of a joke, but some people, not everyone that listens to podcasts, because we've got a good, well-educated listening audience and watching audience, but some people just plain don't listen to what you say and draw their own conclusions. It's a thorny subject, but we tried our best to cover it.
There's a third opinion to probably be represented here, in that a huge amount in the middle will just not care at all. And it's just some fans at the end of the day that we'll move on. Basically, if this truly is it for them, that remains to be seen. If it truly is it for them, we'll forget about it in a couple of weeks. Those seats will be resold on, and we'll all kind of move on.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll be as I don't think it'll be as smooth as that, but I do accept that there will people who just want to go and watch football and think this is a whole load of background noise.
Huge amounts.
They don't necessarily need. Do or die for the Champions League, Melly.
Yeah, isn't it? Well. We've done it again, Stephen, haven't we? We've came in and now we've ticked off a lot of games. We're going, right, here we go. So we're on our fourth game now, where if we're going to have any chance of qualifying for the Champions League, we need to beat the hardest team in the group away from home. It's a tall order, but look, Celtic went toe-to-toe with them recently, played very well, the best I've seen from Celtic in a while, and it fell down because we didn't have any depth in the squad. Some players have started to creep in now that they think maybe they could do a job. So that
James Forrest?
No, there is that. So we've had a couple of players come in that you think maybe we can do something here. But look, Celtic could go out here, play very well, and still come off beaten. We're just hoping to get that third spot. Look, it's all came down to it. We've left it too late again, and it's not really the fault of the players. Some of them just weren't ready. Some of them weren't good enough. And this is where we find ourselves now. So Celtic have to go out there, give a good account of themselves, and as usual, please don't get pumped.
Yeah, it's going to be even harder than we thought it was going to be at home going in. We all agreed that was a very, very difficult game to go into. I think we'd all sort of resigned to probably a defeat in that game. Massively overperformed expectations. And I thought it was a really, really good performance. As much as you can celebrate a draw, I think in context it was actually a brilliant performance, really. One of the best in years. I think we said that last week. It was the best Champions League performance in several years. It's going to be an even trickier challenge away. Having said that, they've just lost to greatly unfancied Las Palmas at the weekend. So that gives me a little bit of confidence to an extent, because it's the Champions League. If they drop a shocker in the league, they can recover that at some point. I'm sure they can get that back. But going into the Champions League, we're into the kind of back nine of the Champions League group stage now. They're going to want to top the group, and Celtic are standing in the way of that now. They're going to be more focused, well, maybe not more focused, but they're going to turn it on in the Champions League. That's what they're there for. I think that they didn't rest any players. Celtic dropped a few players and won at Ross County.
They had a few more days rest than us as
well.
Yeah,
they had a very strong team out against the Las Palmas at the weekend, so they don't have that excuse. I didn't look at it and think, well, maybe there are a couple of dropped players in there. Maybe that's what influenced the performance. I don't think it did. It just seems to have been a bad game, but I don't know how much we can possibly learn from that. There's no getting away from it, though. If we had dropped points going into the game, we would treat it as a dent for the confidence. So there's no reason to think that Atletico will be unfazed by having dropped unexpected points. It's bound to have had some sort of effect. Whether that's enough of effect to drop points at home to Celtic in the Champions League, I don't really know. Very, very hard, but this is what we're here for. Celtic aren't here. I mean, as defeated defeatist as it sounds, we're not in the Champions League to win it. That's never going to happen. All we can hope for is to give as you said, a good account of ourselves, put in good performances, memorable performances that we're hopefully talking about in years to come. Remember that time we went toe-to-toe with Atletico Madrid and took a point off them, or even beat them in their own stadium? This is what we're here for. So I don't think we should be fazed by it either. Hatate missing is a blow. We're going to be missing him for the rest of the group. So that's definitely a blow. I don't know if anyone has really emerged as the nailed-on starter for that. Could be Bernardo, could be David Turnbull, could be Home, could be Kwon, could be the one that we mentioned earlier. This could be the moment that
even in the squad.
No, it nearly is. But I thought that could be the moment we teed up earlier, where he made us eat our words. But it could be any one of those. I wouldn't be surprised to see any one of those names apart from Kwon on the team sheet. So the rest of the team picks itself, basically. I think in the midfield is where the surprises are going to be, but there's no getting away from it. Hatate, losing him is a blow. I said after the home game that maybe it wasn't necessarily the worst thing in the world that he was injured quite early on. I mean, it's bad for him because he got injured, but Bernardo gave us a little bit more of a sort of possession-based, ball retention in there. He's a wee bit more of a steady Eddie than Hatate is, but the bad side of that is that he's nowhere near the same level of creative spark that Hatate brings. So it's a very, very hard game. Missing one of our best players, it's always going to be a tough ask.
I would just like to apologise on behalf of Stephen earlier on. He said we're into the back nine. I just want everyone to know that none of us play golf.
No, absolutely not.
There's a few things going our way, Melly. Now, the last time we won an away game in the Champions League was when?
Brendan Rodgers was the manager anyway, wasn't he?
Yeah, Anderlecht. We're coming up on the anniversaries, depending on when you watch and listen to this, of... no, the anniversary never changes, actually. I don't know why. That doesn't make any sense. Of beating Barcelona and Lazio. There's a couple of things going for Celtic. The Atletico performance first time around, as Stephen's already said, as we said at the time, best performance of the season, probably. Brendan's probably got a bit of a grudge against the manager there because he didn't shake his hand. Apparently he doesn't shake anyone's hand. No. I don't know if it's a germophobia thing or whatever, but it's very weird. You might as well, Melly, go into these games with confidence and positivity, both if you're Celtic and as a fan, because, like you say, all you really need is to give a good account of ourselves, and it's almost, I know if we lose we're out of the Champions League, but there's almost, in a sense, nothing to lose.
Not in this game. I think everybody would have looked at this game and thought, right, they'll play for this one. So Celtic going into it, look, I get it. Look, as a fan, I'm scared because I don't want to see my team take a hiding, but every single player at Celtic will be at Celtic because they want to be involved in these games, and they want to be involved in these games, and they want to perform in these stadiums and at this level, and that's what you aspire to. Now, Brendan Rodgers as well, this is where he wants to be. He wants to be competing against these managers, showing that he hasn't lost it. Look, he had a tough time in the last season at Leicester, but he's still up there in the elite managers, and maybe the way Celtic are set up suits them better for the Champions League rather than this. While Daizen Maeda and Lewis Palmer lack creativity, they haven't been found wanting in the Champions League this season. What they have is Celtic get a lot of early balls in over the flanks and can get in behind teams. I think Alex, when he scouted Atletico Madrid, said that's where Celtic can get at them. We looked very good against them. Those two players were involved in the goals, and look, Celtic just need to go out there and play their game. We're struggling to break teams down. It's not really going to be the case for this game. Celtic have to stay in the game, and what we've seen a lot from this team this season is they can suffer in games, they can get through it. Now, they might do that, they might play the perfect game and still lose, but this is where we want to be. This is where we need to find out, right, who's ready for this level and who's not, because Brendan Rodgers certainly hasn't come here to just be that runner-up in the group that comes forth and goes, right, fair enough. It's got to be Celtic want to be here next season and the next season. This is our second season in the Champions League. We want to make it the third and the fourth. So what do we need to do to stay there, get the players in? We have to perform at this level. That's what the players have got to do now.
And on that bombshell, sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/20minutetims. You can actually sign up free. We're going to start putting free articles and some content up there for you if you want to just check it out, try before you buy type thing. Patreon.com/20minutetims. It'll all be there. Thank you for watching and listening.